All righty. Hello, everyone. Welcome to YARN's first fundraising training. I'm Kate Longabaugh. I use she, her pronouns. I'm calling from the DC area, land of the Piscataway and Anacostia peoples. And a little background about me for the fundraising training. Before the pandemic, I did door-to-door fundraising for environmental group, and that's where I kind of based my experience off of that I'll be sharing here. I also, with YARN's team here, applied for and won a grant for the organization last year, and also do that a little bit in my actual job now. Emily, do you want to introduce yourself real quick? Or Joe?
I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Hi, my name is Joe Chapeau. I'm the Executive Director for the Young Adult Revival Network. I do a lot of fundraising with the Unitarian Universalist Society of San Francisco, where I work, as well as I did some fundraising for the San Francisco Opera. Yeah, Emily?
She was frozen. I don't know if maybe the sharing's too much. Oh no, mic not working.
All right. Well, Emily is also one of our finance team people and did fundraising for their congregation as well.
Awesome. All right. So just quick outline of what we're going to be doing today. We will be mapping our network that we would like to ask. We will share about the YARN budget. We will go over the basics of the ask and other things to know. Writing ask templates, practicing our asks, and then how to do follow-up. So the first thing we're doing, mapping your UU network. If you have a notebook or a Word document on your device, or other way to brainstorm and write down your connections you could ask. We're mainly thinking about your UU network, but it could be non-UU people as well. So are you part of a church or a congregation, or have you been in the past, or any other UU groups? Do you have con networks or UU camp networks? Do you have any campus connections or young adult groups? And any non-UU friends or family you think would be willing to give. And so you can make a map or a list, however you like. These are just a couple examples of how you could make a map of those people. And then you also want to think about how are you going to contact them. You will want to directly talk to them if possible, because that's the most effective way to get them to commit to giving. So preferably phone or in person or video call. But if you need to start that conversation, like with email or social media, because you don't have their direct phone number, that's also great. So we are going to take I would go back, Emily. We're going to take a couple minutes to do this ourselves and then see if anyone wants to share. Does anyone want to share at all? this is just getting started. Made me think, how there's so many people I know that I can't even remember all their names, but connected on social media. So definitely lots of places to share and do direct asks. Does anyone want to share?
I was kind of doing it like thinking of general groupings I know of people and then going from there, starting like the actual list of names. Like, so I was doing like my home congregation and then trying to find like people in my home congregation. And then I was going to like the summer camp I went to and then trying to find like individual people. So I found that a little easier because yeah, there's like a lot of contacts, so I don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like got on Facebook and went to my friends tab, and there was these old lists that I made years ago, apparently. So as I've been of like my friend groups, and so I've been going through my old con list and writing them down, writing them in a note, and then marking down which ones I actually could like call right now because I still have their phone number. Or for that matter, the folks who I'm like closest with, who I'm like, okay, I literally hung out with that person a week ago. I'm gonna ask them because we're really related. So, and I know it's good for the money.
All right, so now we're gonna just go over our budget goals for next year, which starts in July, the fiscal year. So our maximalist want budget is around 26K, and that mostly covers a bunch of staff. So executive director, outreach coordinator, which we're hiring now, our various chaplains and ministry leaders, and then all the digital services like Zoom and newsletters and social media stuff. So that's, a small percentage of it overall. And we're also planning to have some money left over from previous grants and donations last year and this year. Some framing for donations. When I see like this number, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's seems like a lot. Like, how are we going to get there? But it helps me to break it down. Like a common sort of recurring monthly donation that you could suggest would be like $10 a month. And that's $120 a year. And if you had 10 people giving $10 a month, that's 1,200 and so on and so forth. So if we had 200 people giving $10 a month, we would get very close to that budget. So it's definitely within reach when you break it down. But whatever people give, it's all important, one time, recurring, whatever amount it is. Next slide, Emily. All right, so the big part is asking people. That can be hard. It did not come naturally to me. Doesn't come naturally to a lot of people, unless, I don't know, you're a great actor. I don't so you have to practice a lot to get the hang of it. These are some points from, we called it a rap at my old job. You want to keep it short and simple, stay to the point. So have a short summary about YARN, what it is, and then ask and listen to them, and you can tailor it more to what their interests are. It's also really important to show its meaning to you, show heart. If you believe in it, they'll believe in it a lot more. If you're kind of skeptical about it, that they'll probably pick up on that. So just be knowledgeable about the basics, but Joe can help with more information. If they have questions, you can refer them to our website, our social media to learn more. But that heart is really important. And then you want to have confidence and assuming support. So instead of being like, can you help us maybe? Or perhaps you can give some money. You want to assume like you can help us, right? Like assume they will help us and show that in your tone and your words. Another tip is to use their first name if you know them. It's more personable. I was trained with people I didn't know, complete strangers showing up at their doors. So the fact that we know them, that relationship can be important. Next slide. If they're not sure how much to give, this is a guide that the UUA and some congregations use called the Fair Contribution Guide. It's based on people's level of income and the level of support they'd like to provide. So if they're not sure where to start, you can refer them to that. And if you actually take a look at the guide, could one of you copy the link into the chat so people could look at it if they like? We'll share the presentation later too. But for instance, $20 a month is 2% of a 12K adjusted yearly income. So that's more than the $10 a month. So depending on how much they want to give, that's just a starting point idea. We also are really encouraging reoccurring donations. That way we can count on the income. We don't know how much they're going to give, if they're going to give this year, next year, when they're going to give, how much they're going to give. So if possible, ask for recurring. If they don't want to do that, then ask them to give a larger one-time donation. Like if they would be willing to give the equivalent of $10 to $20 a month, so 120. But you know, it's all different, depends on our situation. And like we said, any donation is valuable. Whatever they end up giving, we're very grateful for it. Next slide. All right, so the ask. This is a template that I created. So first, you need to email or text them if that's, or at least that's how I would do it. It'd be like, hey, can I talk to you about YARN fundraising? If you're comfortable just calling up out of the blue, talking to them, you can do that too. So that you can like schedule a time to talk to them face to face or, you know, on the telephone. Because that's how you can really get them to commit. So we're going to go through the template. This is one of two parts of it. Would anyone like to read the template?
I'll do it.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
So there's a blank in here. It says, hi, blank. I'm part of YARN, the UU Young Adult Revival Network. It's this really neat group providing a one-stop shop for everything UU young adults. As you're probably aware, there can be great difficulty in finding UU young adult programming and ministry after Youth Bridge. So YARN not only has its own ministries, but supports other churches and young adults to start their programs. And then, what does it say here? You know, I created YARN. I would tell anyone I created YARN because when I started working at my church young adult ministry, I had nothing and no one to turn to for how to do this work. And I'm determined to not make my successor or anyone else have to go through that again. And yeah.
Emily, can you go to the next slide to finish the template? There's two more points. Joe, could you read the two more points?
So yes, now in its third year, YARN needs the support of folks like you to sustain it for years to come. You can help us, right? And then something, if you can't help financially, you can volunteer. Something like that. Is that good enough, Kate?
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, so and then we also list if they want to know like YARN's future plans. We have some other points as well about hosting online conferences, becoming an independent nonprofit, strengthening faith for young adults in the future of UU, and continuing to expand our fundraising network. So can we go back one slide? So why do you think this, or what parts of this ask or template do you think are important important?
So for me, I have a lot of experience fundraising from among people that I already know. Shout out to the Girl Scout cookie sale. And so I think that this blank that you have where you're like calling on someone by name is really effective. People hearing their name respond in a way that they don't if you're more impersonal.
Any other observations? So one of part of it is you give like a overview of what YARN is. Maybe they know, maybe they don't. Depending on that, you can go into more detail. And then you want to like show how you connect to YARN, why it means something to you, why you're fundraising for it. And then you want to do the ask and assume support.
I also think, this business of talking about how like we want to be a place that youth can go after they bridge is something that I hope will be really effective for people. I think that there's definitely a certain amount of anxiety in our faith around losing the youth. We have historically lost a lot of youth, and we're trying to be the organization that changes that pattern. And I think that people will respond to that.
Yes, I agree. That was definitely part of why I put that in there, because the cliff is there, and especially more in some places more than others. And can you go to the next slide? The other thing is that, maybe they do want to help, but they can't at this time. So could they volunteer, especially if they're a young adult? If they're not a young adult, I think, they can volunteer depending on what it is, as long as they center the young adults. Joe can say more than that. And then the other big thing is asking to share the plate at their congregation. Even if they can or can't give, that's a great thing to ask as well.
And to follow up what Kate said, we do take volunteer support labor from anyone over the age of 18. We are not equipped to work with youth. And then we already have at least one person over the age of 40 who works with us, and they model how to empower young adults while also contributing their wisdom and knowledge to this project. So we don't turn anyone away. We take all the help we get, and as long as we center the young adult, leadership and experience, that's part of the goal with YARN, is to like develop the future leaders of Unitarian Universalism.
Great. Thank you, Joe, for clarifying that. All right, next slide. All right, so we are going to work on making our own scripts, or if you want to use what I made and then, edit it, so that whatever will work best for you in talking to someone. So we should probably go back to show the beginning of the script so that people can see it. Does anyone want to share any updates they did to the template?
Yeah, I'd like to share. So I wrote a draft of what I'm envisioning will be an email that I send to the new chair of the Social Justice Committee at my church, which is the committee that chooses Share the Plate organizations. So it says, "Hi, Alyssa, I'm so glad you're willing to take on the role of Social Justice Committee Chair. As you may know, I have gotten involved with YARN, the UU Young Adult Revival Network. We are an organization working to create community for UU young adults from all over the country to gather online. I know our church's Share the Plate effort usually goes to a local organization, but I'm hopeful that the committee will consider YARN as a Share the Plate organization. We are trying hard to create a sustainable future for Unitarian Universalism, and I think there are a lot of people in our congregation who would be excited about donating to an organization like YARN. Let me know what you think. I'd be happy to chat more about it if anyone has questions. Thanks, Emily."
Great. I like that. And obviously, it's a little different when we're actually doing it in person too. Anyone else want to share?
I'll go ahead. This is something I started writing an outline of what I would say to someone. In this particular case, one thing we should mention, ask for more money from your richer friends. I have some very rich friends. I'm definitely gonna ask them for more money. I also have very poor friends. I'm gonna maybe ask them for a very small amount of money, if I even ask them. So I said, "Hey X, so I thank you for picking up the phone. I want to talk to you today about the UU Young Adult Revival Network. It's this program and organization I started to champion all things young adult ministry. Basically, when I started doing young adult ministry, I had no networks, no resources to really access. I had to go find them all on my own, and I really wanted to change that and support other people in doing young adult ministry and generally try to transform the young adult problem our religion has. So we are working to build a bridge so youth can find and access young adult programs. We're supporting congregations and organizations in creating young adult ministry. And we even run our own events and programs, which create training opportunities for our leadership, who, will be the future leaders of our faith. And the best part is we're funding all this. We're not trying to volunteer it into existence. We're putting real money behind this. And I reached out today because I am asking for your support. We really want to develop a recurring donor base. So can you support us for $30 a month?
Awesome. Sound like you were asking someone real time. I liked the enthusiasm and friendliness you brought to it.
Can I add one thing? If you're making a cold call like that and you haven't arranged to talk to them ahead of time, I would just start with "Hey, is this a good time to talk?" So that you know that you're getting a listening ear.
And don't forget, these are probably your friends and family. They don't hate you for asking money from them. They're friendly people and they want to support what you're passionate about.
May, do you want to share or practice? You can also practice the one we have too.
I'm still editing mine a little bit, but I'll just say it's very similar. Okay, I'll just try and go for it.
Yeah,
We'll pretend that this is finished. Hello, blank. I'm part of the YARN, the UU Young Adult Revival Network. It's a really neat group providing a one-stop shop for everything UUYA. As you're probably aware, there can be great difficulty in finding UUYA programming and ministry after Youth Bridge. YARN not only has its own ministries, but supports other churches and young adults wanting to start their own programs. As a young adult, I've found YARN to be a great place where I can continue my leadership skills and spiritual development in community with other UUYAs across all of the United States as well as Canada. Once I got involved with YARN, I felt much more connected and once again at home in my spiritual religious communities. Now YARN is in its 3rd year and needs the support of folks like you to sustain it for years to come. You can help us, right? If you can't help financially, you can volunteer, and we can offer other ways that you can donate your time or energy, as well as potentially helping with the share the plate at your local congregations. That one was mine.
I liked your personal anecdote. I think that really helps a lot. I was working on a personal anecdote as well for mine. So yeah, that was really good. One thing I would say for the end, I would ask the money part first, and then depending on their response, do the part about volunteering, or because if you throw it all out there, they'll be like, oh yeah, I'll just volunteer, like I'm not gonna give any money. So just do the financial ask first, and then depending on the response, and then of course, no matter what, you can ask share the plate.
I also want to emphasize, you were like, I gotta get it right, and you were like, no, I'm gonna throw myself into it. And that really is the key to fundraising. You just gotta start doing it. You just gotta start asking. There's no way to like write the perfect pitch. You're having a conversation with someone, again, you probably know, and you're asking them to support something you love. They love you, you love this, they're probably gonna see the value in supporting this. So really great job. Just be like, F it, I'm gonna like go and do this right now.
Awesome. All right, so since we don't have a ton of time left, let's go back to the slide share. But yeah, definitely finish honing your template. You can change it depending on who you're asking. And I'd recommend practicing it. You know, we will hopefully have more trainings, or like if you want to set something up with someone and to practice it, that will help make it easier. Emily, can we go to the slide about how to give? I think it is. All right, Joe, do you want to talk about this part?
Sure. Yeah, so YARN is based out of the San Francisco congregation. And right now, I have to admit, we only take money through a not particularly, it's not that it isn't intuitive, it's just kind of like chintzy, I think is the word I'm looking for. It's kind of low grade. It works. I don't want to discourage you. You go to bit.ly/UUSF payments. The actual link is insane. Like I couldn't begin to say it. You go to that bit.ly, it'll take you to the place. It's through a vendor called Mounco. And again, this is the congregation's like donation page. So you need to like go all the way to the bottom of the list where you'll see the Young Adult Revival Network. Again, this YARN is a program. YARN is officially a program of the San Francisco congregation. So you'll see a line at the bottom. You'll see a box to put the amount in. You can select if it's a one-time or recurring donation. There's a little drop-down menu. Then you click enter, and you enter your billing information. Please pay the processing fee, especially if you're giving a small amount on a monthly basis. It really, really helps. It adds up a lot over time. You can also set up an account on this page so that if you want to manage, especially if you're doing a recurring donation, you probably want to set up an account because that makes it really easy to manage your donations going forward. And then finally hit process. And that's it. The church will send financial statements to you. We're kind of working out the process. It might come out weird, mostly because it's mostly related to pledges here, and these ones are different. So
But I
thank
want
you.
to add, we are so grateful to UUSF for hosting us, both financially and kind of programmatically, and allowing Joe to take on this role with YARN. And so thank you so much to that congregation. Even though we hope to one day be our own entity, we're very happy to have them to help, birth our organization.
Yes, I love the support I get here, and thank you for that, Emily. Yeah.
One thing I want to add, depending on how it's set up, you could go over it with them. Like when I did the door-to-door, we actually had a tablet and we went over the amounts. That way they don't forget about it. So, if they want, you could try to see if they can do it with you at that moment, or when you follow up, if they haven't given yet, you could offer to do that. And that way, sometimes people want to check all their finances or whatever, and then do it later. But you could also offer to do it with them at that moment. And that kind of gives them a little extra push as well, and guidance, since they might have questions with the website. All right, last slide of information. All right, so follow up. So in my research for this, I found this study from the UA they did in 2020 on having the most successful stewardship campaigns. And the third most common factor was follow-up. The first one was compelling messaging, which we just were working on. So that means multiple contacts, 2 to 3 plus times. So don't just ask them once, and if you don't get an answer, follow up with them. So the chart that I shared earlier, we would like you to use that. You don't have to put in their contact information if you don't want to, but at least so we can see who you're asking, especially once you get to if you've actually talked to them. If you don't want to put in all the people you sent a message to set up talking to them or whatever, but the people you actually talk to, and then follow up 2 to 3 plus times and see what their answer is. Yeah, Joe, do you have something to say?
Yeah, we want to support people in doing this. We all know people viewing this love YARN, okay, and we need money, and we want to make this. We want to support you in helping, fund this organization that you love. So we're not here to we're not, obviously, you're all volunteers, probably watching this. Okay, there's no rules. I'm not gonna we're not gonna get on you. We want to support you so that YARN can continue to thrive, because funding young adult ministry is so essential to this work. It's why we've been successful.
Yes, thank you, Joe. And a couple other things to toss in there. If you make it about the money, then it's kind of awkward and uncomfortable. But if it's really about the mission, the messaging, what YARN is about, they're more likely to give. Another fun thing, if you want, you could do handwritten thank you notes. So those are the few extra tips we have. If you have any, I guess if anyone has any questions, now would be a good time for that.
Thank you so much, Kate. This is such useful and I think energizing information.
Yes.
Well, thank you all for helping a lot also with the presentation. And we'll be, well, like Joe was saying, we're not gonna be on your back about following up with people, but please use the spreadsheet so we can kind of see where things are at and help with the campaign. And thank you so much for coming and being willing to help YARN in its fundraising campaign and journey.
And big thank you to Kate Longabaugh, who has put a ton of work into our very first fundraising training. It's a huge lift to get this off the ground because now we have something that we can like refine and develop over time and pass on to future leaders. So, Kate, it's been a year and a half you've been working on YARN fundraising. Like, do not discount that. It's incredible, very important work you do. Thank you so much on behalf of everyone here and everyone who's watching this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.